Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mina Amso podcast. I'm so excited to have a friend of mine join me on this episode who will share her own story about moving from Iraq to New Zealand. She's slightly younger than the previous people who I have been having a chat to. She's such a bundle of joy. She's a lawyer and she is here with me now. Her name is Mina too. Hi, Mina.
Hi, Mina. My name twin.
We have got the two Minas in the house.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I watched the last few episodes and I just thought, oh, this is so amazing because I think our community needs someone to kind of record and share the experiences of the Iraqi immigrants in New Zealand. So, yeah, well done.
Absolutely. And I am so excited to hear about your story and how you ended up in New Zealand with your family. And gosh, you know, we've known each other for so long, and everyone out there who knows you knows that you are someone who's so bubbly, so happy, you know, such a go-getter and so smart, beautiful. And you've grown up in such a different culture, right? Like New Zealand is so different to Iraq. Yet, when you did move from Iraq, you were so little. Like, how old were you?
Oh, sorry, Mina, I've lost you completely.
Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh my God, I completely missed that.
It's
yeah,
okay.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Excellent. So I was just saying, you've moved from Iraq to New Zealand quite a while ago, and you were so young. Like, how old were you?
I think I was 9, or at least coming up to 9. So yeah, pretty young.
9 years old. 9 years old is so young. And I suppose, do you remember much from those days?
Yeah. I mean, I was young, but I remember snippets and I have very vivid memories, but there are a lot of gaps in my memories, I think.
What was your first impression of New Zealand?
Of New Zealand? I think my first impression, I think it was very quiet, but I think I was more shocked at certain things. For example, I don't think I'd ever eaten ice cream, or it was the second time I'd eaten ice cream, and we'd gone to my auntie's house to stay with her because she was there before us. Yeah. And we had ice cream blocks in the freezer, and I was just so excited. And I guess that was the beginning of my ice cream kind of obsession. It just continued up until now. So there's this little things that I hadn't experienced.
Yeah. Is this when you started to the ice cream addiction, the obsession?
Yes. It's definitely continued up until this day. But yeah, I think it was just little things. Also, greenery, as you know, in New Zealand, it's very green. Yeah. Especially compared to Iraq.
So why did you move? Why did you move? Why did your family move all the way, thousands of kilometers across the oceans and the countries, and such a big move? Like, why did you move?
So obviously we had the Iran-Iraq War at first, and then so I was quite young for that. Then we had the Gulf War, which I experienced, and my sister and brother experienced in family. And then we had sanctions, which continued for 10 years, but we left kind of in 96 because I think the trigger, obviously things were getting really bad, and we had to, there were a lot of things that we didn't have, and there was a lot of fear among everybody, like my family. And once my family started moving, a lot of my cousins were moving, you know, to London and Canada and everything. My parents started thinking about it, and I think the trigger was my dad is an engineer. He had an office, and he wasn't there, thankfully, but his secretary was in the office, and these people came and kind of tied her up, stole a lot of the equipment in his office, and she was very scared, and as his employee, obviously. But yeah, we were just grateful that my dad didn't have to experience that. Because he wasn't there, and I think that triggered my parents to think, okay, I think we need to leave now.
Wow.
It's just getting more and more violent. So, yeah, and then so that's why
it's an interesting situation if you think about it. Like, it is such a loss of safety, right, for some of the families who experienced life there. Moving from a country that used to welcome you and love you. I mean, this is the country that you grew up in, your family grew up in, this is your culture, your language, and for the country and the people of the country not to treat you as well, not to be, not to be so, hostile is so sad.
Yeah, I think people there were just trying to survive, so everybody was just doing what they could, and I think there was just a lot of fear and poverty. Like, I wouldn't say everybody was in poverty. I think a lot of people were struggling, especially towards the end. So when we were leaving, so people get driven to do certain things. I think.
So you clearly remember that sense of fear, do you, as a child?
Yes and no. I think there's sometimes I don't think I processed or understood it. I think there was times when it was confusing, probably. I think the most fear I had that I remember was when we left, and we had to leave in the middle of the night and get into this car that drove us to Jordan, and on the way, it was just scary. Like, I was like, I don't even know where we're going. Probably the furthest I'd ever left the country was Jordan, because I'd been there the previous year. And it was just like, obviously in the darkness, and you're never going to see your school friends again or anything. And then there was a pit stop, and the most fear I had, or sadness probably as a child, is I think you have to give the people searching you things.
Yeah.
And my mum handed them my colouring in felts, and that was the only thing, like one of the only things you take with you. So it was just like the last thing. It's like, you're just taking my felts and giving them to this lady who was searching us. And I was like, oh my God, this is a horrible and miserable experience.
Wow. And I suppose she was giving it to them as a bribery, or just why was she giving that away?
Yeah, it was a form of bribery, that they had their kids there as well, I think, and just to kind of move things along.
There's a lot of that in Iraq.
Yeah, there was a tendency
back in the day, and
people to take bribes.
Just to make sure that they happy.
Exactly, and you've hidden all this jewelry and stuff, I think, and you don't want them to look a bit too much and take these things, and so you just want to move things along. So
was it
I'm glad she did it, obviously.
So was it a happy time, or was it stressful for you, or was it a mixture of things?
I don't remember being excited, if that makes sense. I think I was just confused and nervous. I think at that age you're just uncertain, and I was very attached, especially to my mum at that time. So I remember just wanting to just sit next to her in the airplane, or want to sit next to anyone else, because you're just a child, so you don't really get it. But I think as things, like, as we kind of landed in New Zealand, and then I saw my auntie and my cousin and stuff, it kind of was like, okay, this is getting a bit better. And it's not so bad.
Because like transitioning to a whole new world, really. Back in the day, back in the 1996, Iraq did not have a lot of internet, right? And we actually did not have any access, right?
Yeah, I don't think we had internet until, oh, this is showing my age, but not till, yeah, way down, kind of going into high school. I remember going into computer room and they were like, now you can use the internet. And you're like, what is that?
So imagine moving to a whole new country, from a country that did not allow you to use internet. So you had no idea what was going on in the outside world. And having to go into a whole new world. Yeah. How did you even transition into New Zealand? Did you transition well as a person?
I think, yeah, I mean, I guess my first day at school was primary school, and I remember it very well because they took us on this tour around the school. They showed us the library and all the facilities, and it was really great. But I was like, okay, well, that's nice that I saw the facilities. Now I can go home. I'm going to go now. My parents were like, no, you have to actually stay in school. And then all the kids were like, they were just staring at you and talking to you in English, but you didn't know a single word. And they're all surrounding me just like, and, probably asking, what's your name and all that stuff. And I was just like, this is like scary. So I just darted, I was like, I'm leaving. So I just ran away back to my parents because I could see them from far away. And they're like, no, go back. And also I just remember sitting down, and I think at school they ask you questions, so everybody puts their hand up. So I just put my hand up. I had no idea what they were asking because obviously you didn't know a single word of English. And then one day, like a few months down the track, she actually asked me, like, so Mina, what do you think? Because I had put my hand up. And I was like, I don't know. I can't even understand what you're saying. But I did think, especially at my primary school, we had I think the people along the way, especially New Zealand people, helped us. Like, St. Vincent de Paul. I remember at school we had the rangitoto room, they called it. So we had this special lady, Mrs. Lane, who'd a few of us, I'm sure, remember we'd leave our normal classes and go to that special class which was designed for us, immigrant children. And they would teach us English. I mean, at the time, I personally was not happy that I had to go into this special class and be singled out and all that stuff. But in hindsight, it was great. Like, I think what a great lady who kind of ran in, spent her own time teaching us. And so I think full of anxiety, but also, it's good for children. Like, I mean, it's not good for children to experience it, but I think it really built up strength and resilience.
Well, I mean, so there must have been real, like, exciting moments, meeting like new friends, making new friends, being together with a whole new way of studying, of learning at school. But also, like, so you probably have gone through some sort of difficult moments and significant moments. Do you remember anything from school that some of these moments that you've gone through?
I think I had many. I think, it was especially high school. At that point, your English is better. Progressively, like your vocabulary is better. Your dealings you're starting to understand more about another culture, and although it's still kind of a culture shock, you're making friends. And I think I just remember kind of also connecting with the teachers and understanding what I was taught. And I think that's, for me, that was the most significant kind of moment, is when they asked us to do an assignment and I do well in it, and I was like, okay, phew, like finally I'm actually learning and participating in New Zealand life. I think that was for someone my age coming into New Zealand, that was the measuring point, if that makes sense. Is that I can actually participate.
So you just say something about culture shock. What was shocking about the culture?
Oh, where do I start? I think especially high school is so hard. I mean, I came in at a younger age probably, like where I still had spent enough time at at Iraqi school to know Arabic and everything. But like my, my friends at school who were Kiwi, it was just like they were doing certain, like especially in year 12 and 13, they're all kind of going to parties or wearing different branded clothing, which you just got, like, it's just not something that you did. And so you're all asking, can I go to this party? But obviously the answer is no. Or sometimes you do go to the socials and you're like, I don't really know what. You just don't know what the etiquette is and how to interact. And you're just, everything you do is confusion. That's how I would explain it.
Because there was no...
Yeah. But it was just also, now looking back.
No, you go. Keep going. Because, I mean, I was going to say, there's no socials as such in your school back in Iraq, right? Like, do you remember going to a party, a dance party with your friends at school?
No, I was young.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, I was only 9 when I left, so... yeah, I don't think that exists.
Because they had like a year 9 social here in New Zealand. So the socials start to get popular from a really young age. And if you really look at young people nowadays, what they wear to the socials and the fact that they all have partners.
I wouldn't know. Oh my gosh, that must be hard. Like, you're already kind of dealing with your own internal, because at that point your emotions and things haven't been formed and you don't know yourself very well. So it's already hard enough trying to deal with that, and I think as an immigrant, like on top of all of that, normal social interactions you're trying to deal with and understand and figure out who you are. You have to figure out on top of it, how do I navigate this different culture on top of, my own culture and my own kind of, you come home and there's a certain way of living and then you go to school and there's a certain way of interacting. And it's just, so it's, I definitely don't envy.
It's almost like was it like a bit of a disconnection between what you heard and saw at school and then what you heard and saw at home?
Yes, definitely. And you learn very quickly to, or sometimes not so quickly, to compartmentalize the two. I think you can't go, oh yes, my school friends are dating and all that stuff, but we don't do that, especially not at school.
Because
or my school friends.
Sorry, keep going. I keep interrupting. I'm too excited. I've got lots of questions.
Talk a lot. I was just saying, school friends would go drinking, and it's like, well, I'm not going to go drinking. But so you kind of have to, like, sometimes you get grumpy, you can't do it, but also you have to compartmentalize and be okay.
Yeah, because how easy was it for you to make friendships at school?
I don't think that easy, and I was very grateful to go into uni. I think, the Iraqi girls, I went to all-girls Catholic school, so the Iraqis hung out with the Iraqis. I don't think we're at a level where we understood very well, like for me anyway. It was not easy, but I met some, I met some good people and still talk to them to this day.
So was it?
Yeah, I think when I went.
Sorry.
I think there's a lag. That's probably why.
So we're talking about friendships. And by the way, if you're listening, this is the Mina Amso podcast. And I'm doing series with Iraqi immigrants having come from Iraq to New Zealand and have established their lives from scratch and have learned the new ways of living. And it's interesting to hear about all these different stories. So I've already spoken to about 2 people feel free to go back and listen to my first episode of season 6. And that's the Mina Amso podcast on Spotify, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. First episode was with Dr. Mina Rassam, and she really highlighted how important it was to move to a new country, and what it was like for her was really difficult at times, and having to go and get coffees for people. And she's someone who was a professor at a university in Auckland, in Iraq, sorry. So it's, it's such an interesting,
Mina? I've lost you.
Yeah, you lost me. So now that Mina has lost me, I am going to wrap this up now for this episode, but we will come back next episode with Mina Rassam, part 2. And until next time, take care and see you then.